So day 11, arrays. Everything today is going to involve arrays. Similar format to the other, all the other workshops. You're going to have to make a clone of this website. So very simple, right? We just have an H1 with a button. Generate an array with 10 random numbers between 1 and 100. When I click this button, we'll see an array, and we'll see a lot more options. The array is right here with 10 random numbers. And that button that said generate the random array disappeared. And then from left to right, I would work on this project in order, because it goes from very, very easy to very, very challenging. Except reset is kind of an exception. That's not that challenging, but I just put it there because it made sense to me, the flow, to have reset at the end there. But if you can always click refresh to reset things. You don't need to click reset, but anyway. So we have our array, and then we have this first option to display the first number. So we're going to have to know how to access a certain item from our array, right? The next option we have is to add a random number. So how can we add something to an array? The third option is kind of silly. We just replace everything with a bear. Fourth option, this is getting a little bit harder. There might be a built-in, I can't remember off the top of my head if there's a built-in method to do this. There probably is. But if you want more of a challenge, don't use the built-in method. So we should see this array just reversed. And if we reverse it back, it should be the original. Oh, show the highest number. So somehow you'll have to have logic to check each number and see if it's the highest number. So in this case, it looks like 100 would win. And then we do a big step up, kind of, in challenging, or the level of challenge. FizzBuzz. There's a certain pattern here to replace numbers with either what I'm calling fizz or what I'm calling the emoji for buzz. You can try to discover the pattern on your own by resetting and looking at it, or you can Google it. This is like a weirdly popular interview question. This is the interview question that I was told I had to give people for technical interviews, the same one every time. And that's not uncommon for some reason. It's just like the go-to like technical interview question. No idea why really, but that's just how it happened. Anyway, you can try to discover the pattern for yourself or Google it. This next one is a big level up in difficulty, and I'll let you discover this pattern on your own. Yeah, this will be a fun... I won't even give any hints. You just have to watch and think you can discover the pattern. And then finally, this was a yesterday edition. Really challenging. The array that's auto-generated somehow gets populated here with this select box, is what we call this, and you can choose which number to remove. So this is actually, and this is something like, this functionality is going to be like a pattern that's very useful in real applications, but it also is very challenging. Any questions on all that today? So the workshops are designed that nobody even if they're very, very skilled, is bored or doesn't have a challenge. So you should never feel like so overwhelmed. You just do what you can do, you know? You keep on just progressing and see how far you can get. Yeah. No one should be up all night working on remove a number. I mean, if you want to, that's great, but you don't have to be. So, what are arrays, right? We'll start there with what I always ask you guys. This one might be a little difficult to do, but what are arrays? So, Victor, what's an array? Your voice sounds crazy right now. Is that just on my end or to everyone?
Sounds weird to me.
Yeah. I don't know if that was
helium. Sounds like a voice.
It was like helium times 1,000. Go try one more time. No. It's super jacked up. Maybe reset and come back to us. I hope it's not on my end or all of us. Daniel, what's an array?
Like a list of objects.
Does it have to be an object?
Not necessarily. It could be string, number.
So what's the generic name for all those?
Not sure.
Values, I guess we can say.
Yeah.
A list of values all stored in one variable. Yeah. And then Kimberly, why should we care about an array? Why is an array useful?
Because you could put all the elements within one, I guess, function or whatever.
Yeah.
Function. You could do everything. Instead of retyping it, you could do it all at one time.
Yeah. So values associated with each other, like in a group, are convenient, like are grouped together. That's why it's very useful for us. So today we're going to have, I don't think we've used ChatGPT before, but we're going to have a fish themed lecture. So I'm going to ask, what are the most common fish pet names? Does anyone have fish? Okay, we're the only household with fish. Okay, that makes sense to me, actually. So what are the most common fish pet names? I thought Nemo would be number one, honestly. And I bet it still is. I don't trust ChatGPT. So forgetting arrays, let's pretend that doesn't exist, but I want to keep track of the most common names in a variable. I want the top 5 most common fish names in a variable, but only the variables we've learned so far, string, number, Boolean. How could I do that? How could I do that? How could I do that, guys? Opens the class.
You could put it in an array.
What was that, Rowan?
You could put it in an array.
Well, the whole idea is we can't use an array.
Make like 5 variables.
Yeah,
5
we could do fish1 equals bubbles. Fish2 equals Nemo, and so on and so on. This is like a lot of typing, a lot of work, and these variables aren't grouped together in a nice way. How can we do this with one variable, though? It's going to be ugly, but yeah, David.
You can concact the strings.
Yeah, we could
Like,
make some
mhm.
gross string, right? Like this. And why would this be? So this kind of works, right? But what happens if Goldie dies? How do I change my variable? Kimberly, how can I get rid of Goldie if Goldie dies?
I just had it in my head and it went out. Give me a sec. You would have to remove them, but I don't remember how at the moment.
Yeah, I actually don't think we've covered this. It's kind of a harder question than I intended. But we would have to manipulate the string, probably using slice or splice, which we haven't covered yet. It would be a little challenging. So that's the beauty with arrays. We can group things together nicely, values, and then if they change, we can change them way easier. And we can access them way easier. So if I wanted to just find out, do I even have a pet? Maybe this is for an aquarium with 10,000 fishes or fish, sorry. And I was like, well, do we have a fish named Nemo or did he die? And how would I even search this string? Like it would be very challenging to work with this collection of values. So that's why that's why we have an array. So how can I create the array instead of my top 5 fish names? Roman?
You could do brackets.
Yeah, so we have square brackets.
The first name, which is bubbles.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there we go. We've created an array of 5 fish names, right? So now the question is, well, I just want to I want to output the first item in the array to the console. How can I access just that first item to the array?
You would do fishes.
Yes.
Equal. Then you have to put I could be wrong. The bracket.
Okay,
with the zero.
we're a little off. This would be redeclaring fishes.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, so let's just start with console.logging the whole array. How do I do that, Sydney? How can I just see fishes in my console?
Oh, console.
Yeah. So there we go. That looks nice, right? But now in my console, I just want bubbles. What do you think, Sydney?
The brackets and 0.
Yeah, so square brackets, and then we have our index, this is called. And this is going to function the same way for strings, right? So we always start counting at 0 in coding. And the position of these items in an array is referred to as its index. And the 0 index is the first item, so we'll see bubbles, right? But now I'm noticing bubbles needs to be capitalized. So how do I access the first item? Or not really access the first item. How do I override the first item there so I can properly make it capitalized? Monica?
Would you do like fishes with an index of 0 equal to, and then just another name, or?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So this is kind of intuitive, right? We just access it the normal way we would, and then use our assignment operator. Yeah. And then to see if this worked, we can, of course, console.log it. And now we have it properly capitalized. So at our aquarium, we got a new fish named Gills. How can I add Gills to our array? Hara?
You would use the dot push method.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out. So it'll be fishes. Sorry, it's at the end, right? We're adding it to the end.
That brings up an interesting point, right? Traditionally, with an array, you always are adding to the end. You can choose not to. You can do different things, but traditionally, you're going to add to the end. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Dot push, and then in parentheses, I can't see the name.
oh yeah, Gil, I think. Or
Okay.
maybe Gills.
Gil.
Gills.
Gills.
Okay, and then to verify that it worked, we can console.log it, and we see Gills, right? Unfortunately, when we put Gills in, it was a saltwater fish into a freshwater, and Gills died. How can we remove Gills from our array?
Pop.
Yeah, fishes.pop. Any argument for .pop?
You put gills in them. No.
Yeah,
have-
trick question.
It automatically takes it out, right?
Yeah, the
Takes it
last
out.
item. Mm-hmm. So now there's no more gills, right? What else do we want to do? Add to an array, access an array, remove an item. Let's get a little more, or I guess way more difficult, right? Or let's switch. Let's switch gears a little bit. We might come back to the fishes, but let's say we have an array of grades, right? And I want to calculate the average grade to see if my student passed. Yeah, how can I do this? I want to calculate the average grade to see if my student passed. What are some steps we're going to have to do?
Create a loop.
Yeah, we're going to need a loop. What type of loop would you like to use?
For loop would be easiest.
Okay.
Starting from the index of 0. I is less than grades dot length. I plus plus.
And maybe we should pause there. Although this is similar to strings, right? So every data type has built-in methods that we get for free, just like with strings. And dot length will tell us the number of items in any array. And then here, what were you thinking, Ryan? What did you want to do with this for loop?
I'm not sure.
I mean, you're right. We needed to use one. Any ideas, David?
Yeah, we can create like a sum, let sum equal, and then just add up all the numbers and divide by how many elements there are.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So how can we calculate the sum? We're going to need to calculate the sum first.
So you so you do sum is equal to sum I.
Sum I.
Right. Yeah, because we're referencing the index.
What? So
And-
what's our array called?
Oh, sorry. Grades I. Plus
So-
sum.
Yeah. So in the first iteration, when grades I is equal to 0, what will grades I resolve to? What value?
80.
Exactly. And then the next iteration it'll be 90, 100, and 30. Yep. So I think that's our sum. And then David was saying what do we do next? Jazz, what do you think?
Then we have to divide the sum by the length of the array.
Yeah. How do I get the length of the array?
Grades dot length.
And this, what's a good name for this variable that we're calculating?
Cons average equals.
Yeah. And I have a little error here. All right, and then we can console.log to see if this makes sense. And 75 seems right to me. So let me show you my favorite for loop in JavaScript to calculate this sum a slightly different way. Has anyone encountered a for of loop in their pre-work journeys or life? No? Okay, I'll just show you then. So my favorite loop is called for of loop. And we can basically say let num of what we want to iterate through, in this case, an array. So our array name is grades. And then this variable we call whatever we want. But each item in here is a number, so that kind of makes sense, right? And then now in here, I have access to each number as it iterates through. And here I can just put sum equals sum plus num. So it's a little bit cleaner. They're totally equivalent though. So it's just like a visual nicety kind of syntactic sugar maybe. Nothing different fundamentally is going on, but it just reads very nice. That's called a for of loop. Questions on that? We're making really good time, so if you have questions.
Yeah, could you repeat the for of loop, please?
Yeah, so this is the structure of a for of loop. You have to declare the name of a variable, but usually you're going to say, well, what is each of these items? These are numbers, right? So num makes sense for the variable name. But what if I was iterating through my fish? What would make sense to call each of those items?
Name.
Maybe name.
String.
Name is actually fine. I was thinking just fish, but name is totally fine. Yeah. Name, fish. String, you can get a little more specific, I think, but also would be fine. Technically, you're correct. It's data type is a string. So that is up to you, the variable name. And then you have to put this keyword of, and then the name of your array. But this also works for strings. So the name of your array or your string. And if this happened to be a string, does anyone know what each item would be if I used a for of loop? Can anyone take a guess? If I did,
character?
yeah, if I did this, what would we see in the console?
Like DAVID individually.
Yeah. So for of loops works for arrays and strings. Maybe objects? I don't think so, but we'll get there tomorrow.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Is a for in loop the same thing, or is there a difference, or is it
No,
completely
totally different?
Oh,
and we'll
okay.
get there because that's useful as well. Although I find myself using them the least.
I have a question real quick, if you don't mind. So for the arrays, and I probably went over this yesterday, but what's the difference between a pop and a shift? Aren't they the same, kind of the same thing? They remove items?
Well, let's do it. Right. So grades.pop will remove from which direction? So will the 80 or the 30 be removed, Aaron? So we're right here again.
30.
Yeah, 30. And if we do shift, it removes from the beginning.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right, I remember.
But definitely your go-to should be pop because that's the standard for arrays. Shift you should only use for some kind of edge case where you need to use it. The standard way to use an array, add to the end, remove from the end. Last in, first out functionality.
Quick question about the for
of. Yeah.
Yeah. Does that automatically turn any strings into arrays?
Does it turn strings into an array?
Yeah, like how it turned the string of David into an array.
Oh, it didn't. This character, if we do type of, it's not going to be an array. It's going to be what? Each iteration.
Oh, okay.
So this is running. Well, how many times, Victor, is this running? This loop?
5 times?
Yeah, exactly. And each time it's a character, and a character is data type is a string. So there's actually no array in this example.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I get it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Is there any built-in method to remove a specific index from an array?
Yeah,
Like if
absolutely.
I want to remove like index of grades, I want to remove index 2 of grades. Is there something built in?
Yeah. So we can do grades dot, is it slice or splice? I never remember. Splice, I think.
I believe it's splice.
Yeah. So splice, we tell it what index we want to start at and how many we want to remove. So if we wanted to remove like this 90 from the array. And then here's another concept that's going to be important. This was actually more advanced than I wanted to show you guys right now, but it's fine because it's come up kind of organically. Some methods are mutating and some are non-mutating. And this is an important concept. Can anyone guess what I mean or knows what I mean from these two different categories? Yeah, Renata.
So mutating is that you're changing the array, where there's some methods like map where it takes the copy of the array and creates a new array, and then you're not mutating it or changing it.
Yeah, perfect. And that is an important concept to think about. So, what is splice? What is splice? Mutating or non-mutating? One more time, Gyeong?
Mutating.
Mutating, yeah. What is pop? Ryan, what is pop? Mutating or non-mutating?
Mutating.
Yeah. Do we even have an example? Well, we do. No, we don't have an example of non-mutating right now, but we certainly will. Like our for of loop is non-mutating. We're not destroying the string David, right? It's not a method though, so it doesn't really count. Anyway, I want to go back to fish, and I want to say that Nemo died. We need to remove Nemo, but I don't want to use a built-in method. So I don't want to use splice. Because there's a very good chance when you're building applications, you don't know, nor do you care what index something is at. Like if Amazon has an array of 100,000 products, they don't care that their Acer laptop is number 900 in this array. They just care that it exists and what information it contains in there.
Maybe we could use if statement inside a for loop.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with a for loop. That's a good place to start.
Let name of fishes.
Uh-huh.
And then if name is equal to, you said Goldie?
Nemo we killed or died.
Nemo then string. Maybe somehow make the value of name an empty string. I'm not sure. This is like where I'm kind of having to guess.
Yeah, you're on the right track for sure. This is a good starting place. At the end of the day, I want a new array that has everything but Nemo. I want a new array with all the old values except Nemo.
Maybe put fishes inside the for loop. So right after the bracket, put fishes.
Oh, and let me add this requirement. I don't want to mutate the original array of fishes. So I want a new array called like new fishes.
Just declare a new variable for the new array that you're going to copy into.
We're getting real close.
Wouldn't you want to make the name not equal to Nemo and then put them all into the new array?
Yeah. How do I do that?
For that name of fishes, if name. But we can't use the push method.
We can on the new array. The new array can be mutated.
Okay.
The old array cannot be.
So would you, new fishes dot push name.
And then finally, console.log new fishes, and we should see everything but Nemo. We see a lot, but this first one. So this is going to be an important pattern. Searching through arrays, filtering arrays out, removing things from arrays. Kind of like this idea. Questions on that? All right. I want to visually see these fishes in a select box, we call it. Oh, we have an example of a select box. So right here, we have an example of a select box. So I want to build this, but instead of numbers, I want to see the fishes. I want to see my fishes in the array. So starting with the HTML, I don't think we've ever covered this. I don't even think I gave it to you in pre-work. But does anyone from their journeys know about select boxes and how the basic structure is?
Do you just put it in a div?
Yeah, we can put anything in a div, sure.
Give it like an ID of, I don't know, Dropbox.
Well,
I think you can choose select.
yeah, so there's a built-in tag called select. And all automatically we already have this little drop down. But what I want to see in this drop down is what was it? Like Nemo. And then if you click it, you see all the other options. Gills, if Gills is still alive. Swimmy. So on and so on. That's our goal, to build this box. Oops. So in the select box, what tag do I put in the select box to get my different options of fishes?
We use option.
Yeah.
Option tag.
So we use a tag called option. And there's a little trick. If you don't specify a value, I think the value by default is what you put as the text child. So here I could put gills, swimmy. But there's a reason I don't want to hard code it like this. Does anyone know why this would be not a great idea to hard code these values?
These things change.
Yeah, we've constantly been adding to our aquarium, not killing fish. I don't know why I say that. Our fish are dying, so we want these to dynamically change. So here instead, we should probably do this from JavaScript. I'm going to simplify this a lot. So now, what do I want to do? Up here, I want to iterate through this array and add all the fish into the select box.
Use map, I think.
Yeah, but we haven't learned map. So there's another way we can do it using a new loop we learned. This is my objective, to see this select box with like Nemo, Gills, Swimmy. Or actually Bubbles, Nemo, Finn, Goldie, Swimmy.
I think we can append.
Yeah, we're going to do all those things. We're going to use a for loop. We're going to append. I think probably starting at the for loop makes the most sense. So does anyone have a foggy idea about how we could start the wheels?
For let fish of fishes.
For let fish of fishes. Yep, I like that. And just for sanity, let's console.log fish. What do we expect to see? Alexander?
I don't even remember which variable fish was equal to. I'm kind of all over the place trying to remember where we're at.
Yeah, let me clean that up. And then, so our for of loop, fishes is this array. The for of loop will iterate through each item one at a time. So the first iteration, fish will be equal to Bubbles.
Yeah.
And then Nemo, then Finn, then Goldie. So in the console, we'll see what, Alexander?
Bubbles.
Bubbles, then Nemo, then Finn, then Goldie, then Swimmy. Yep. So that's a good start. But now somehow we want to like create an option tag for each one of these guys and add it to this select so that we see it visually on this page. So how can we do that?
Would you do a document.create element there?
We would, yeah. What argument?
Would it be an option?
Options.
It would, yeah. And what's a good name to save a reference to this?
Option.
Insert fish. No.
Yeah, either one. Okay, so we got that. We're creating an option for each fish. That's nice. So we have a little tag that says option. That's blank. We can even console.log this, right? I encourage you guys to like constantly be hitting console.log to see what's going on. So we have that. We're getting pretty close, but a few more steps.
Would you do a document query selector and then change the text?
Yeah, inside the loop or outside the loop?
Inside.
Well, inside the loop, our lives are easier. You basically want to do this, right? Here's our goal. Somehow, ignore this value. We don't need it right now. Somehow we have Nemo right here, the text. That's our goal.
Text content.
Yes. Yeah. So what do I write though here, Renata?
Option. The tag content.
Yeah. Equals.
This.
Yep. All right. So now we can console.log again, right? And see the work we've been making. Now we're looking real good. I think maybe we only have one more step. 2 more steps. So where do we want to add this to?
Append select.
Yeah, but before we append to select, we have to do what?
Document.query selector.
Yep.
And assign that to a variable.
And now?
What Renata said.
Select append child option.
And there we go. We have this really nice select box of our fish. And then from there, when your user clicks on one of these, you can do different things, which is the super challenge of today's assignment. But I'll let you try to go from there. Well, maybe since it's the first time seeing it, we could do it. So, and we have some time. Well, let me pause there. What questions do you have at this point?
I do. How different from like if we put like body append child instead select?
Well, it wouldn't work because these options would be just floating in the body. And we don't have body defined, so we would have to find it. But yeah, it wouldn't make any sense.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What about giving the drop-down box like a default name that it returns to? Is that something you have to do in the HTML code?
Yeah. So, well, here's the cool thing. Let's actually circle back to that because, or let's answer that right now. What if we wanted to give a default, like we want to see choose a fish here, choose your favorite name as an option. So how can I do? That's my objective. I want to see choose your favorite fish as my first option. Is that what you mean, Alexander? Like seeing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess my first guess would be you could just add it to the array and you could just make it the first.
Yeah,
option.
that would be kind of nasty though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I figured there's probably a better
Yeah,
way.
that'd be kind of nasty. But that technically would work, I guess. But I don't like that at all. So let's think of something else.
Is it set attribute value?
So select probably has a default, but we can just make it the first child. But let's see. Select HTML default or placeholder maybe. Placeholder. No, we still, it looks like need to actually put it as an option. So yeah, that's what kind of what I thought. So we actually need it to be like this. Choose your fish. Yeah, before all the other fish. So what can we do?
I think it's still option set attribute.
No, we actually have to create the option tag.
Oh, we did do that.
I think you're thinking steps ahead. Yeah.
Okay,
I see what
sorry.
you're saying. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so creates a tag and then set the attribute.
So let's create the tag first, though. So how do we do that?
Create element. Select or option, sorry.
And so the name for this, what's a good name for this variable?
Option.
Yeah, or maybe like label or
Label.
default. Or we could do it. Initial? I don't know. Maybe label.
Placeholder.
Yeah, placeholder's good. Okay, how do we add it as the first option in our select array? Kevin, are you there? Guillaume? How can we add this to our select?
Select append choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, placeholder.
And then what do we need to do here?
And then placeholder text content. Text content, yeah. Choose, yeah.
Yeah. So there's the answer to that. Now things get more complicated if you want this to not like be an option that's clickable, but that I'll let you explore because it'll take too much time, and that's something you can just iron out. I do want to show you though how to fire a function when an option is chosen. I think that is important. So that's our objective now. When I choose an option, I want to see it in my console. When I choose an option, I want to see it in my console. Anyone with experience with select boxes that thinks that they have an idea?
I think there's a selected attribute.
There's a selected attribute? Yeah, yes, there's a selected attribute, but that's not... I'm talking about adding an event listener to our select box.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think you could just add an event listener as we're looping through every option, right?
You maybe could, but you wouldn't do that. You would put it on the parent select. So it functions a little different than other things. So here, I think it's change. And then we can fire any function we want. And let's just see if this works. So here I'm saying anytime the select box is changed, I want to see in my console changed, and that works. And then here, we get passed in for free the event, and in the event, we can find the current value. And the current value should be what was selected, what is currently selected. So there we see Nemo, and there we see Finn, and there we see Goldie. Cool. Questions on that? This is the super bonus. So if this got too crazy towards the end, you can leave it aside till we progress further in the course. But this is going to be very important stuff later on as well.
Max, I do. Sorry. All right, Renata, you can go.
Renata?
My minor question I had is just this e.target.value, because I know we have to do it, but I don't really understand why. Like I just memorized it. Like I have to do it. And I just,
So when the user does anything in the browser and you have an event listener that's listening for them to do something, the browser creates you the event. And it has so much information, it's ridiculous. There's like 1,000 properties, where their mouse was, what the XY location, like I can't think of other things, but it's just, there's so much ridiculous information that you get from the browser about the event. And here we're saying, well, the event was that they changed a select box, and the details of it were that the current value is this. So that's what we're getting from the browser. And that's all work that the browser is tracking for us, that we're just like using a small piece of. Actually, we can see the event right here. Target refers to the element that caused the firing of the event. But if we just look at the event, I guess I was exaggerating with thousands, but I think for other events, there are way more. But here are a few other ones that I don't use, so don't ask me about them. Like event phase, no idea. Never used it. But here's some other things that are recorded about the event, of this particular event.
On the event listener, why is it change and not click? Like, aren't we clicking?
Well, it's both, technically, I guess. We are clicking, but here, so the default value is the first child, and then when we change it, that's the event we're listening for. There might be other ways to do this as well. That's just this particular event listener.
Oh, okay.
But if we did click, I don't know, it might work. So here it's firing on every click. So it's a little bit different, which maybe you want, but most likely you don't want. This would be too much firing. All right, any final questions?
For that, you're passing the E, like the event, into the function because you're specifically looking for that event to occur, right? So
this is a callback function that we're defining, and the browser is the one who actually fires this event. We don't fire it, we just define it. And when they fire the event, they pass in the argument of the event to our callback function. So it feels like we're the ones, I mean, we are the ones using it, but it's when they fire the event, they pass in the argument of the event.
So Max, on that, the E isn't something that the browser calls it E. That's just what we're choosing to
Oh, we
call
can
it.
call this anything we want. Yeah. I mean, but don't, because everybody calls it E or event. So, but yeah, that's just a variable name. Or in this case, a parameter name. All right. If it,
I had a question.
yeah.
I mean, this might be a little bit too outside of the scope, but I know that we put an event listener on the parent container option or the select, and then we're like kind of like going through a list of options, and those are children.
Yes.
When this fires, and I think like the event kind of like fires from top down, or goes from like the very top, like body HTML, kind of goes down to the element or target that triggered this event. And I mean, I think technically it might be the select or options, I guess. Does this like have any? Is it the option that's triggering it, or the select, or is there like event delegation going on, or event propagation? I'm not really sure of the term. Event bubbling.
I think it's the event that's causing. Sorry, I think it's the select element that's causing.
Okay.
I think it's the select element that's causing the firing. But yeah, it is different than the input example though, because it is a little more complicated because it's like tracking all of its children. Yeah, I don't have a real satisfying answer of how the browser is tracking that, I guess. And specifically how, if the child is notifying the select, or, I would have to look into that more.